Okay, I'm not gonna hold you guys long tonight, but I got some great news, so I wanted to jump on real quick. I normally come on between the hours of 10 and 11, but tonight I just wanted to jump on real quick, give you some great news, and also we're gonna talk tonight about hair texture. So I am Tanisha Bibbs. I am a certified hair loss practitioner. I'm also a licensed cosmetologist educator. And I'm going to tell you the difference between the two. Okay, a licensed cosmetologist educator or licensed cosmetologist, they're able to work on customers or clients, or able to do hair or makeup and skincare and things like that. So they work on the surface of a client. So in other words, a hairstylist can only really deal with what's called the epidermis of the hair. So the epidermis is the top layer of the hair. So that's what a hairstylist do. Anything underneath, a hair loss practitioner is able and qualified to do that, or a trichologist. So what I do is I deal with the study of the hair and scalp disorders. So I talk about a lot of those disorders on my scope. Hey, Ray Jones. I talk about a lot of the disorders of the scalp in my scopes. And, sometimes I also talk about cosmetology. But today we're going to be talking a lot about texture. Now, when we talk about texture in cosmetology, we deal with the basics of it. But when we get more into the practical side of it, as far as the certified hair loss practitioner side of it, it goes more in depth with texture. You have to know more in depth with texture, because you want to make sure that, when you're checking your client's hair, that you give the right analysis. Okay, so what I do as a hair loss practitioner, of course, as a cosmetologist, you're going to use all of your tools and your equipment. You're going to use your shears, you're going to use your combs and things like that to make sure that you're doing your customer's hair correctly and things like that. But as a certified hair loss practitioner, there are certain things that I need to be able to look at a client's scalp to determine, hey, Cynthia Online, to look at a client's scalp to determine if the client is dealing with hair disorder. Okay, and the way that I do that is by my scope. This is called a scope. Okay, I use this scope to literally just look at the customer's scalp, just to make sure that to see what they're dealing with. I'm looking for like inflammations. I'm looking for dandruffs. I'm looking for a lot of stuff. I'm looking for if there's any bruise in the on the scalp and things like that, so that I can refer them to a dermatologist. So you can't really become a hair loss practitioner if really and truly you have to have a cosmetology license. You don't really necessarily have to have that license. You just have to go to school. But it's always good to have a basic cosmetology background, because you're not going to know what to look for. So that's basically what I do. But tonight I jumped on because, let me go to my slide here. I jumped on because I wanted to show you guys, and thank you for the hearts. I wanted to talk to you guys about the follicle shape, what the follicle shape determines. Hair consists of several different things. One, it consists of curl pattern, it consists of volume, and also consistency. Okay, there are several theories pertaining to a curly hair pattern. I think a lot of times where we have a struggle is when we don't know the texture of hair. When you don't know the texture of hair, you tend to make the wrong decisions when it comes to either styles or cutting and things like that. Thank you, Cynthia, for inviting your followers. Scientists believe that the shape of the hair shaft has effect on the curliness of an individual hair. All right. And round shape allows for less disulfide bonds. So if you know what disulfide bonds are, those are bonds that you can break, whether you have when you're doing a chemical process or chemical, anything chemical or anything harsh, as you can also break your bonds if you're blow drying with a 3000 watt blow dryer. Okay. So those are things you have to also take in consideration. Now, when bonds are presented, they are directly in line of one another, okay, which causes, or which is considered to be straight hair. Now, I'm going to show you a diagram on what the follicle shapes looks like. All right. If you can see this, I'm going to try to keep it this way so the top portion, as you can see here, here's the top portion. This is the follicle shape determines hair texture. Anytime you're dealing with shape, it's going to determine hair texture. So anytime you look at the, if you was to pull a strand of hair out of your hair and you go up under a magnifying glass and you look up under that magnifying glass, you're going to see the difference in the hair. So straight hair have more of a round shape. Then wavy hair is a little shorter, of course, but it's still round. Your curly hair gets a little flatter, and so your spiral coil also gets a little flatter. The flatter the hair shaft becomes, the curlier the hair gets, because the shape allows more cysteines becomes compact together, resulting in a bent shape that becomes curly in form. Okay, so learning what the follicle shapes or the hair texture is so important when it comes to, can you turn on your music? Oh, you can hear the music? Ooh. All right, so learning to understanding the hair texture is so important when it comes to styling or when it comes to making a decision whether you are dealing with processed hair or whether you are dealing with natural hair. All right. So now you have the follicle size determine hair thickness. You got follicle shape and you got the follicle size. Okay. Thick, thin, thick, thin. All right. Anytime you're dealing with straight, wavy, curly, or coiled hair, the thickness in the straight hair is going to be just as about this, the same as the straight, or the same in diameter. The wavy is going to be thin hair thickness. The curly is going to be thick hair thickness, and the spiral coil is going to be thin hair thickness. All right. As the hair follicle shapes between curl pattern, the hair follicle size determine the thickness. As the circumference of the hair follicle expands, so does the thickness of the hair follicle. This causes hair volume to be thin, normal, or thick. The consistency of hair is grounded into 3 categories. So the consistency of the hair is grounded into 3 categories. You have fine, medium, or coarse hair. All right. So we talked about the hair texture and the hair thickness. Now we're talking about the categories. They are fine, medium, and coarse. This is going to determine by the hair follicle the volume and the condition of the hair strand. Okay, so anytime that you're doing consultations when you are in your salons, or you are doing consultations period when it consists of hair, you want to take in consideration the hair texture, the hair thickness, and also the categories of the hair. All right, fine hair is smaller circumference. It's smaller in circumference. The coarse hair tends to be more resistant, so it's going to be more resistant when it comes to product, or when it comes to blow drying, it's going to be more resistant. That's why when you are, if you do, you have people who still do relaxers. You have natural hair. It's so important to also learn that when you're doing natural hair as well. You have to learn the texture of that hair. You have to learn the thickness of that hair. You also have to learn the categories of that hair before you start putting anything on. All right, that's so important. Fine hair strands have a thin, smooth consistency, whereas coarse hair possesses a harder consistency. All right, and then your medium hair strands are neither fine nor coarse, and it falls in the middle of the 2 consistencies. So you have you have fine, you have coarse, and then you have medium. All right. So these are the things. This is what you need to understand about hair texture. Anytime you're dealing with hair chemicals, anytime you're dealing with natural hair, you have to know the texture and the thickness of that hair before you determine what you're going to do or the style that you're going to do. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to be dealing with more of a hair classification. I think we get those 2 mixed up. The hair texture and the hair classification are 2 different things. So I wanted to just jump on real quick quick just to give you guys that nugget and to let you all know that we will be back on tomorrow. Also, I did, in the beginning of my scope, I talked about the difference between a cosmetologist and a certified hair loss practitioner. I am a certified hair loss practitioner, and what I do is I give an analysis on the hair and also deal with the disorders of the scalp. Okay, when you are a cosmetologist, you deal with what's called surface of the hair. So you deal with everything that sits up on top of the epidermis. So you have let me just use my hands as a diagram. So you have a top layer, which is the epidermis, and then you have the bottom layer, which is the dermis. My job as a certified hair loss practitioner is to deal with what's underneath what's in the dermis. Okay, I deal with if you have inflammation, if you have bruising, if you have dandruff, these kinds of things that I deal with. And then I do a lot of my scopes. Hey, Teresa, thank you for joining. I deal with that in reference to my scopes. Anytime you jump on my scopes, you'll hear more about the certified hair loss practitioner because that's what my specialty is in. I use a scope. I will be scoping this week just to kind of show you guys what I do. You'll be able to see the gist of what I do as far as my job. Hey, Teresa, as far as my job as a hair loss practitioner. And when you're a cosmetologist, you deal with the skin as well, but you're dealing with surface. You're not dealing with what's underneath. All right. So I thank you guys so much for joining me this evening. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. And also this week, you guys tune in because I'm going to be doing a scope on the scalp so you guys can kind of see what I look for when I look at the follicle. I look for if there's any disorders in the scalp that I can deal with or that I can offer up my products to so that those issues can be resolved. And also I deal with a lot of hair loss.